On January 29, multiple fighter jets roared across the sky over Nanchang, Jiangxi Province. A netizen who filmed the incident exclaimed, "I don't know what's happening today, but there were fighter jets flying over Nanchang all afternoon with no stop." On January 27, numerous netizens from Guangdong, Shandong, and Jiangxi provinces also filmed helicopters and J-16, J-20 fighter jets zooming overhead. Reports also indicated that on January 28, military helicopters from the Army Aviation Corps, identified as LH951122, were deployed over Beijing. Based on the serial number, these helicopters belong to the 82nd Group Army of the Central Theater Command, formerly the 38th Army, with bases typically located in Tongzhou, Beijing, and Baoding. Liu Zhenli, who was arrested alongside military vice chairman Zhang Yuxia, had previously served as the commander of the 38th Group Army and as the 1st Army commander. The aviation tracking website Flightradar24 added an eerie layer of authenticity to these rumors, showing that from January 27 to 28, the frequency of military aircraft activity over Beijing was 20 times higher than usual. This unprecedented activity has led to speculation about a potential armed coup casting a shadow over the capital. On the morning of January 28, netizens from Weifang, Shandong, reported hearing the continuous sounds of what they suspected to be machine gun or automatic cannon fire. Weifang is home to the 80th Group Army of the Northern Theater Command. On January 30, an Anhui citizen posted a video stating, "Not sure if this is a drill or an outbreak of war. The sounds of artillery fire are relentless, and normally if it were a drill, there would be prior announcements and the area would be blocked off." Some netizens in Henan also reported hearing gunfire. On January 29, another netizen filmed a train loaded with military vehicles heading towards Zeruhe in Inner Mongolia, Asia's largest and the CCP's most advanced joint land-air training base. On the same day, reports emerged that Sun Shaocheng, the party secretary of Inner Mongolia, was under investigation. The simultaneous downfall of a local leader and a large-scale military movement in the same location has led to analysis suggesting a possible connection to purging military and local factions. Since the official announcement of Zhang Yuxia's arrest, rumors of large-scale military movements and several group armies heading towards Beijing or advancing into the capital have spread. Notably, the 82nd Group Army, 80th Group Army, as well as the 83rd Group Army from Xinjiang, Henan, and the 79th Group Army from Liaoyang, Liaoning Province, have reportedly arrived in Beijing and its surroundings by January 27. Further, the 81st, 78th, 72nd, 73rd, 77th, and the 76th Group Armies have sent 1 or 2 brigades via rails or highways toward Beijing, with some claiming that 11 Group Armies defied orders and are heading to Beijing. The core narrative of these rumors is that the military has experienced severe internal divisions, with some group armies no longer solely loyal to Xi Jinping, but instead pressuring the capital under various pretexts, aiming to force the Central Guard to abandon their loyalty and quickly turn or surrender. Netizens interpret this as evidence that Xi Jinping's policy missteps, economic failures, excessive anti-corruption campaigns, and diplomatic isolation have led to a loss of trust within the military. Discontent has built up within the lower ranks, and now these grievances are being expressed under the guise of military movements towards Beijing. The expectation of an impending coup is fervently echoed across social media. Finally, the gunshots have come. Let the bullets fly for a while. Xi Jinping has long been abandoned by those around him. The military isn't stupid. Who would still want to die for one person? Now that Zhang Yuxia is gone, Xi's military is falling apart and the whole country is counting down. At this point, it's no surprise that the military is rebelling. It's strange if they don't. This almost fervent expectation reflects deep frustration and helplessness among many members of the public towards the current regime. Under long-standing information blockades, economic downturns, and total social control, more people are placing their hopes for change on the most primal and extreme path. Political power comes from the barrel of a gun. Rumors of symbolic deployments by distant group armies and calls for the Central Guard to surrender are being read as signs of a tacit agreement for an anti-Xi coalition within the military, or just waiting for the right opportunity, or the sound of gunfire. Of course, the majority of these rumors remain unverified, and many details even contradict each other. Faced with widespread public speculation, the CCP has maintained an eerie silence or has only offered vague responses such as normal drills or adjustments to readiness. However, in the vacuum of information, the official avoidance has only fueled public suspicion, causing rumors and emotions to escalate further. Countless netizens are passionately sharing unverified videos and screenshots, with comments like, "We'll know in the next few days. When the gunshots ring out, it will be a new era." Setting aside these unverified rumors, looking at the real actions taken by Xi Jinping, it seems he may have already prepared for the potential of internal chaos and sudden risk. According to a military insider using the pseudonym Liu Jian, on January 24, just hours before the Ministry of Defense was about to release a major announcement, the entire Central Military Commission system suddenly entered the highest level of security, wartime readiness. Liu Jian recalled, "The situation was sudden and we didn't know what was happening, but the move to wartime readiness was still surprising because the top leader wasn't on a foreign visit at the time." Liu Jian reviewed that the atmosphere of the Central Military Commission's headquarters, the August 1 building in Beijing, was tense. It was reported that many personnel from the Central Guard Bureau were deployed, and security levels were abruptly raised. Some people moved computers, documents, and files in boxes. The atmosphere was very tense. It wasn't until the news of Zhang Yisha's arrest spread that the military personnel understood what was going on. Military expert using pseudonym Liu Jianchang explained that the CCP's wartime readiness is not intended for external combat, but is instead the highest level of precaution to ensure political security within the system. He said, "The focus is on maintaining stability in the command chain and absolute obedience, not on responding to external military conflict." A retired military veteran from Shandong, Mr. Lu, sharply pointed out, "This isn't about external readiness, it's internal wartime preparedness." He explained that within the CCP system, such wartime readiness measures were typically used during Xi Jinping's foreign visits or major political events, mainly to ensure the safety of high-ranking officials and the stability of the command system. The direct activation of such measures without an external military conflict or foreign visit has been seen as an abnormal signal within the military. Liu Jian said only later did people realize this was to prevent internal problems. They were probably worried about abnormalities within the military. Moreover, observers and scholars have pointed out that the arrest of Zhang Yisha was a power hunt carefully orchestrated by Xi Jinping. The core of this move lies in Xi Jinping's prior surgical precision in personnel changes, which completely paralyzed any military force Zhang Yisha might have relied on in the Beijing area. Among these, the movement of the 82nd Group Army has drawn considerable attention. On January 30, Professor Qin Wenkou, a distinguished professor at Taiwan's East Asian Studies of National Jiangxi University, reviewed how Xi Jinping has been preparing for the worst. He reminded the audience to look back at the highly unusual promotion of generals in December 2025, just before Zhang Yisha's downfall. At the time, there were changes in the leadership of all 5 military theaters, but Xi Jinping notably promoted the commanders of 2 specific theaters to general. One was responsible for defending Beijing, the Central Theater, and the other for the Taiwan frontline, the Eastern Theater. Ko emphasized this indicates that the commanders of the Central and Eastern theaters are of great importance and must be dealt with first. What's even more crucial is the background of these 2 new commanders. Both Han Shenyan, commander of the Central Theater, and the new commander of the Eastern Theater are not from traditional army backgrounds but from the Air Force, and their previous careers are far removed from the Zhang Yisha's vast army faction network. This strategic placement is very deliberate. Before purging the military's army faction, Xi ensured that the command over Beijing's forbidden troops on the front line would be given to outsiders with no ties to the targeted faction. The 82nd Group Army was established in April 2017 under the Army of the Central Theater Command, with its headquarters in Baoding, Hebei Province. The Beijing Garrison Command is a regular army unit which transferred to the Beijing Military Region to the Army Headquarters in August 2016 and is directly commanded by the Central Military Commission. The Beijing garrison primarily ensures the safety of China's capital in peacetime and is responsible for covering the central government's relocation during wartime, defending against foreign enemies, counter-terrorism, and riot control. A research fellow at the Institute for National Defense and Security Research, Chang Che, stated that Xi Jinping's decision to remove Zhang Yisha had been planned for a long time. This wasn't a sudden move. Even when Miao Hua was purged, preparations were already in place. Throughout the process, Xi Jinping had ensured that control over Beijing's security was in safe hands. Before Han Shenyan, the commander of the Central Theater, and Zhu Jun, the political commissar of the Beijing garrison, are from the Air Force, with no connections to Miao or Zhang. Beijing Garrison Commander Fu Wenhua, a former subordinate of Zhang Yisha when he served in the Shenyang military region, had also been transferred in March 2025 and has yet to be replaced. These coordinated actions by the CCP resemble a strategic game of chess. Before launching a purge, Xi Jinping had already eliminated all of Zhang Yisha's military pieces in the Beijing area, effectively isolating him. After Zhang Yisha's downfall, rumors began circulating online about the 82nd Group Army possibly rescuing Zhang. However, in light of such a meticulous arrangement, the likelihood of the so-called forced confrontation or rescue seems increasingly remote. Even with these meticulous preparations, the CCP remained cautious. After taking actions against Zhang Yixia, the CCP's propaganda machine immediately went into overdrive. The Liberation Army Daily ran 2 front-page stories, highly publicizing how the 82nd Group Army and the Beijing garrison were studying Xi Jinping's military strengthening thoughts. This fill-in-the-blanks type of propaganda is seen by many observers as a form of clumsy cover-up. A sharp analysis in Singapore's Dianhe Zhaobao pointed out that interpreting CCP propaganda requires listening between the lines. Therefore, the official line that the 82nd Group Army is stable, the Beijing garrison is stable, Xi Jinping is stable, and the PLA is loyal really means the 82nd Group Army is unstable, the Beijing garrison is unstable, Xi Jinping is very unstable, and the PLA is disloyal. This exposes deep concerns about the loyalty of these forces. Meanwhile, a major campaign to maintain stability through public opinion across the military is also underway. The CCP's military media has repeatedly emphasized absolute loyalty and obedience to orders at an unprecedented frequency, tightening discipline, confidentiality, public opinion management, and personnel movement for mid- and high-ranking officers. In the absence of any clear external threats, there have been a heavy focus on internal vigilance, emergency mobilizations, and security drills. Historical experience shows that when a regime begins to use the military to guard against instability within its own system, its security structure is already at its most fragile stage. Additionally, in recent days, the CCP has issued obituaries for several high-ranking military officials, with the announcements delayed in a highly coordinated manner, adding a layer of ominous symbolism to the political storm. Firstly, Wang Zheng, a former vice political commissar and rear admiral, passed away on January 3, but the official announcement came 16 days later, on January 19. Secondly, Wei Fulin, former deputy chief of the general staff, died on January 15, but the official announcement came 15 days later, on January 30. Thirdly, Liao Xilong, former member of the Central Military Commission and head of the Logistics Department, passed away on January 23, with the announcement delayed for 6 days until January 29. This highly coordinated delayed release is not coincidental. In a tightly controlled information system, the timing of obituary releases itself sends a political signal. Particularly noteworthy is the death of Wei Fulin. Political commentator Tai Shen-kun pointed out that Wei Fulin was Zhang Yixia's old leader and benefactor, the person who promoted him to high positions. According to CCP tradition, Zhang Yixia would be expected to personally attend Wei's funeral. Therefore, Xi Jinping's decision to act against Zhang at this time, while concealing Wei's death, objectively created an on-the-hunt situation. This prevented the public from using Zhang's attendance at the funeral to assess his situation, thus paving the way for his secret arrest. After the arrest of Zhang Yixia and Liu Zhenli, the CCP's official response displayed a strange split personality. On one hand, it loudly emphasized centralized unified leadership. On the other hand, it remained tight-lipped about the event, attempting to erase the names of 2 once powerful figures from public memory through silence and deletion. On January 30, the CCP's Politburo held a meeting chaired by Xi Jinping. The official press release emphasized that major party organization must adhere to the centralized and unified leadership of the party's Central Committee, but it made no mention of the military vice chairman's arrest, a major blow to the country's foundation. What's even more unusual is that when CCTV news broadcast reported on this meeting, it notably did not show any footage of the meeting, with only the anchor reading from a script, further exposing the CCP's struggle to create the appearance of unity and stability. This out-of-sight, out-of-mind method is a fully coordinated top-down effort. On January 29, during a press conference by the Ministry of Defense, spokesperson Jiang Bin unusually denied a Wall Street Journal report suggesting that Zhang Yixia had leaked nuclear secrets to the US government, saying, "Do not make wild speculations." The Ministry of Defense's English website has yet to publish the transcript of that day's conference, while the Chinese website has removed any Q&A content related to Zhang Yixia, Liu Zhenli, and corruption. A similar situation occurred at the CCP's Taiwan Affairs Office press conference. When asked about the incident, spokesperson Zhang Han lowered her head and flipped through her materials for 10 seconds, never mentioning Zhang or Liu by name. Instead, she vaguely referred to anti-corruption efforts and personnel changes in the military leadership. On January 30, Liberation Army Daily published a high-profile article about anti-corruption efforts, but similarly avoided mentioning the 2 most newsworthy names. However, the CCP's attempts to build a wall of silence cannot conceal the reality that its internal structure is collapsing. According to insiders, after Zhang and Liu were investigated, military orders could no longer be executed from Zhongnanhai. At least 2 documents issued by the Central Military Commission to various military regions and armed groups were widely resisted and not executed, leading to an unprecedented breakdown in the command system. So what does this massive military purge mean for the CCP? Professor Chen Wei-Ko provided a deep analysis. He believes that Zhang Yusha's downfall is not merely a case of anti-corruption, but a political purge interwoven with factional struggles and ideological battles. This will have at least 4 far-reaching impacts on the CCP regime. Accelerated military general transition. As a large number of generals born in the 1950s and 1960s fall, younger officers born after 1970 will rise to higher positions, forcing a restructuring of the military. Unease within the military. Xi Jinping is leading through fear. For generals, this means more opportunities for promotion, but it also means they can be removed quickly. This insecurity will inevitably lead to confusion and turmoil within the military. Erosion of the leader's reputation. By purging his close allies, Xi Jinping only distances himself from those who come after him. Professor Ko describes, in the future, Xi Jinping will resemble past emperors, isolated in the imperial palace. Delayed short-term preparation for a war with Taiwan. With the core command of the military nearly paralyzed, it will take time to reorganize. As a result, the likelihood of initiating a large-scale war is temporarily reduced. However, Professor Ko stresses that this is only temporary and the long-term direction will not change. Finally, Professor Ko proposed a shocking hypothesis. Xi Jinping may be paving the way for a weak ruler successor. He analyzed that by removing powerful allies like Zhang Yusha, Xi's behavior resembles that of Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang of the Ming Dynasty, who eliminated his trusted ministers to ensure his grandson, Zhu Yunwen, could succeed him. If this hypothesis holds, it means Xi Jinping may be clearing all potential power threats for a weaker successor. The direct consequence of this is that even the currently highly trusted Politburo members such as Chai Chi and Premier Li Qiang could become targets for purging in the future. From the eerie silence to the paralysis of military orders, to the academic insights on isolated leaders and weak successors, all signs point to one conclusion. Zhang Yusha's downfall is not merely a power struggle at the top, but the beginning of the CCP's systematic collapse.